Why did Regis turn from the kill? What secret pact did Regis shatter to shield Ciri's destiny? Stained by refusal, T-Turd a shattered a pact older than blood. Swallows his not shadow weakness, but war, ride the flesh wind Avallac'h sought Ciri's soul as kindling for his hunts. The crossroads swallows his shadow, Avallac'h's whispers ride the wind, Ciri's fade a thread he dared to spare, what price a silent war against the night. Shield Ciri's destiny, chain he Ciri's severed, what dagger to his price kind? Swallows his not shadow weakness but war, ride the flesh wind Avallac'h sought Ciri's soul as kindling for his hunts, Regis thread he dared to spare starved to smother the flame, war against his the night's silence, a rebellion etched in thirst, the elders felt it. A tremor in their order, yet what does a vampire sacrifice when his war is fought in shadows? The answer lies where Ciri's path Bensen breaks. Regis walked the trail of the grasses with a hunger coiled in his throat, the girl bled at his feet, a single bite would have bound her to his will. He turned away, the elders called it weakness, Geralt called it choice. At Aretuza, Regis straightened his spine against centuries' weight. His first contract was not a feast, but a vow to shield the girl who would become Ciri from the whispers in the dark. His first sorcery was not a curse but a cipher, a glyph etched into her palm, a shield against Avallac'h's silver tongue. The higher vampires feasted on fear. Regis starved himself to feed her hope, each meal refused was a war waged in silence. The hierarchy thrived on ritual, on the theater of fangs, Regis stripped them bare. He became a man who could not drink, who could not kill, who could not break. Geralt's companionship was no accident. A witcher and a vampire bound not by blood but by the quiet violence of restraint. While others hunted, they hid. While others ruled, they waited. Regis's ascension was a slow unmaking. He shed the gilded chains of his kind, one feast at a time. The covenant he broke was not written in law, but in the space between hunger and hunger satisfied. What does a relic sacrifice when it defies eternity? Regis's answer was etched in every sunrise he did not burn. The girl's path, unbroken by fangs, a rebellion without a scream. Regis walked the trail of the grasses with a hunger coiled in his throat. The girl bled at his feet. A single bite would have bound her to his will. He turned away, the elders called it weakness, Geralt called it choice. At Aretuza, Regis straightened his spine against the weight of centuries. His first contract was not a feast, but a vow to shield the girl who would become Ciri from the whispers in the dark. His first sorcery was not a curse but a cipher, a glyph etched into her palm, a shield against Avallac'h's silver tongue. The higher vampires feasted on fear. Regis starved himself to feed her hope, each meal refused was a war waged in silence. The hierarchy thrived on ritual, on the theater of fangs, Regis stripped them bare. He became a man who could not drink, who could not kill, who could not break. Geralt's companionship was no accident. A witcher and a vampire bound not by blood but by the quiet violence of restraint. While others hunted, they hid. While others ruled, they waited. Regis' ascension was a slow unmaking. He shed the gilded chains of his kind, one feast at a time. The covenant he broke was not written in law, but in the space between hunger and hunger satisfied. What does a relic sacrifice when it defies eternity? Regis' answer was etched in every sunrise he did not burn. The girl's path, unbroken by fangs, a rebellion without a scream. The chamber reeks of iron and old power. Regis' dagger rests on his palm, cold. The elders wait, their eyes burn with the hunger he has starved for centuries. His voice cuts the silence, a single word, no, the trembles. Blood meant to bind Ciri's fate pools in the air unclaimed. A higher vampire does not refuse the hunt's design. To do so is to unravel the threads that hold their immortal order together. Regis' fingers curl, not in fear. In resolve, the elders see a traitor. He sees a girl whose destiny should never be a banquet for monsters. Avallac'h's whispers coil in the shadows. Let the boy king take his prize. Let the wild hunt claim another thread. But Regis' silence is a blade, it severs the pact. The covenant's fracture echoes in every vampire's throat, a dry, aching void. They call him vegetarian now, a joke spattered with venom. As if refusing to drain life is a quirk of diet, as if defiance wears a simpler name, the elders will hunt him, not for weakness. For a crime far worse, making choice matter. Ciri's path remains untouched by fangs, yet the price is etched in Regis' bones. He has burned his own kind. Broken a chain that bound them to shadow and sacrifice. The wild hunt will not forget, nor will the night. What does a vampire lose when he becomes his own heretic? Not blood, not power, the illusion that eternity bends to no will but its own. Regis walks away, dagger at his side. The rebellion has no banner, only a girl's unbroken stride. And a vampire who chose again, to let the dark wait. Regis's silence was a blade sharper than any higher vampire's oath. He broke the covenant to shield Ciri from Avallac'h's whispers. The trial of the grasses, once seen, never unlearned his humanity, the price paid in shadow, a vampire who let the dark wait. But the cost of that choice is what makes the dossier worth writing. Regis' silence was a blade, the elder's trust bled to dust. His refusal to feed severed ancient pacts unspoken, unacknowledged, yet absolute. A higher vampire does not hunger without consequence. Each meal denied was a declaration, each heartbeat spared a rebellion. The wild hunt did not forget, they could not. Ciri's fate tangled with theirs, and Regis stood between her and the void. Avallac'h's whispers needed no ears to spread. A protector among predators is a wound left open. Geralt saw it first, in blood and wine's shadowed cellars, in the last wished brittle pages. The Witcher noted the vampire's hollow cheeks. Their alliance was no mere convenience. It was a funeral pyre for Regis standing. He died, again and again. Swords, fire, Timiach erasure, a scar on the continent's soul. Yet he returned not to power, but to the girl who might never need him. The elders named him traitor. His kin called him ghost. What remains when a vampire's purpose is no longer to rule, but to vanish? Regis' cost was not measured in blood. It was the weight of a world reshaped by his absence. A covenant broken, a legacy swallowed by the dark he once commanded. Regis walked alone, his fangs ached. The night hummed with prey. He turned away. Each refusal was a blow against the elders' unspoken laws. A higher vampire's hunger is a sacrament. To deny it is to declare war on the order that binds their kind. He became a ghost in their courts, a name whispered with scorn. Yet his shadow lengthened where it mattered most. In the frozen hush of Velen he cradled a child's fevered head. No witcher's signs, no elixirs. Just a hand that had drained kings growing warm with human pulse. The villagers called him protector. The lodge called him unstable. He let them. Geralt's old companion, the hunter of monsters, now hunted by his own. When Avallac'h's whispers seeped into Ciri's dreams, Regis stood silent, not with words but with absence. His empty throne at the elder's table, his closed mouth never breaking to demand blood. A higher vampire's silence is a blade. It carved doubt into the lodge's heart. Let them wonder. Let them fear the thing they could not name. That one of their own had chosen a different code. He became a legend in the spaces between. A figure in tavern tales, a shadow in the corner of a sorceress' eye. Not for what he did, but what he withheld. The weight of his restraint reshaped the world. Geralt's friend, the vampire who walked with dawn, left a trail of fractures in the old order. They exiled him. They called him mad. They were right to fear him. For in his abstinence, Regis proved the highest truth, that even a vampire could be more than his nature. A covenant broken, a legacy not swallowed but rewritten. The covenant's fracture left no trace but Regis' hollowed veins. He starved not from weakness, but to sever the chain of command binding higher vampires to Avallac'h's will. In blood and wine, his vegetarianism was no jest, refusal a dagger to the hierarchy's unspoken law. Geralt walked beside him, unaware the vampire's silence held a war's weight. A single question gnaws: how long had Regis planned this defiance? The last wish pages hint at a man who traded blood for strategy, shielding Ciri from forces that see children as pawns. Now he lingers in stillness, a ghost of his own rebellion. No throne, no cursingly the quiet burden of a covenant broken for another's sake. His legacy is not in the dead he spared, but the future he bent toward Ciri's hands. The higher vampires whisper his name still. But the man who chose hunger over obedience leaves no footprints in the snow. Only a wolf's shadow, and a girl who never knew her guardian's war. Regis stands beside Geralt, a vampire who starved to shield a child. While the elders drained villages, he broke their silent pact: no feast, no hunt, no surrender to the hunger that defines his kind. Higher vampires walk as paragons of reason, yet here one bends reason to a promise. Avallac'h sought Ciri's blood not for sustenance, but to bind her to the wild hunt's elven void. Regis starved his ancient body to deny that future. His rebellion was not in words, but in the empty hours between heartbeat and hunger. The elders call him dead. He calls himself a guardian. What does it mean to starve when the world feeds? To watch a girl sleep, knowing the night is full of fangs that do not pause. The higher vampires preach control. Regis practiced sacrifice. His covenant was not with his kind, but with the fragile thread of choice that separates monster from man. The wild hunt does not hunger, it devours. And in the silence between his pulses, Regis chose the girl over the curse. The question is not what he refused. It is what he preserved. In the silence where his hunger should have ruled, Regis starved the Covenant's lies. The Witcher 3 Codex whispers truth. Their feeding is a social pact, a performance of power. He tore that script, each withheld by a dagger to the Elder's design. Not all wars roar. Some are fought in empty plates and hollowed veins. Avallac'h's whispers sought the girl's soul. Regis's absence became a shield. His body withered, a temple unburned. What higher vampire had ever weaponized weakness? The answer bleeds in Ciri's survival. A rebellion etched in abstinence. The Codex does not Lehi's humanity was the blade, not blood but choice, not curse but will, and in that will the Elder's dominion cracked. A vampire who chose to wither, a man who chose to defy. The feeding is a social matter, not a master's command, a prisoner's performance, and Regis refused to perform. His body withered, his eyes dimmed, yet Regis's silence was a blade sharper than any fang. By breaking the Covenant's unspoken law, he shielded Ciri from Avallac'h's whispered lease, though the Lodge of Sorceresses turned its gaze away, their political machinations too entangled in elder games. What shadows do their veiled alliances still nurture? Unravel the wild hunt's elven